Most people don't actually know history. They know the movie version of history. Over time, pop culture, bad textbooks, and repeated myths have distorted a lot of what really happened. And some of the biggest historical facts people believe today are either exaggerated, misleading, or completely false. Take the Salem witch trials. Movies make it look like hundreds of witches were burned at the stake in a massive frenzy. But in reality, around 20 people were executed during the trials, most by hanging. None were burned. The hysteria was still horrifying, but Hollywood dramatically amplified the scale. Then there's the image everyone has of the pilgrims. Black clothes, black hats, big buckles everywhere. That version mostly came from later artistic depictions and Victorian-era interpretations. In reality, the pilgrims often wore practical clothing with color, including reds, greens, browns, and blues. The all-black aesthetic became a historical stereotype centuries later. And the Magna Carta? People often describe it as the birth of universal human rights. But originally, it was mostly a political agreement forced onto King John by rebellious barons in 1215. It mattered historically, but not because medieval England suddenly embraced modern democracy overnight. Some myths get even stranger. The Great Wall of China is not actually visible from space with the naked eye under normal conditions, despite generations of people repeating the claim. Cleopatra lived closer in time to the invention of the iPhone than to the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. The pyramids are that old, and the famous story about Isaac Newton discovering gravity because an apple hit his head? Probably exaggerated. Newton himself mentioned observing falling apples. But the dramatic version most people know appeared later and may have been embellished over time. Even ancient Roman dining gets misunderstood. Romans didn't regularly use table forks the way we do today. Most meals were eaten with hands, knives, and spoons. Forks became common in Europe much later. Then there's the so-called Dark Ages. That phrase makes it sound like Europe collapsed into centuries of ignorance after the fall of Rome. But historians today often avoid the term because it oversimplifies the period. Agriculture advanced, architecture evolved, universities emerged, philosophy, trade, and scientific development continued in many regions. A lot of the Dark Ages narrative was later exaggerated during the Renaissance to make earlier centuries seem more primitive by comparison. That's the fascinating thing about history. The deeper you look, the more you realize that history isn't just about the past. It's about the stories people choose to repeat and the myths that survive long enough to feel true.